me.
Hey gang, thanks for tuning in. It's the Castaway Friday Fish Fry podcast.
This episode brought to you by these fine sponsors: For Her Outdoor Apparel and Spot Choker.
Yeah, so here's another thing that I noticed when you guys were talking about the fish not biting. When I pulled up to the spot we were talking about, not too far from here, the fish were there. I mean, right away when I was pulling into there, started marking fish, onesie, twosies. Once I stopped, why, there was more, and I started working a spoon, and I wouldn't get a bite. And I'm like, I'd already been to another ditch out in the creek, and it was kind of the same thing. And I'm like, don't tell me I'm just going to be sitting over fish and I'm not going to get a bite, And so I kept working the spoon. Casting it, working it back to the boat. And after about 4 or 5 casts, I catch one. And when I caught him, I just happened to look down at the graph, and as I brought him to the boat, he brought the whole school with him. I mean, big spaghetti all underneath the boat, right?
Not good. I'm just messing with you.
So I got that fish, took care of that fish, cast back in there, and immediately catch another one on the second cast.
There you go.
And so I bring that one back to the boat, and more followed that, and then there was more spaghetti under the boat. And it seemed like after that, it was just like catching one right after another. And it seemed like you had to get them fired up. Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys have heard that before. Yeah. But once I caught that first one and I pulled that whole school off the bottom, which I imagine they were stuck to the bottom. Once they came off to the bottom, fish started moving around. And then next one I catch, we got more fish following it to the boat. And the next thing I had pulled all kinds of fish off the bottom, and then it was just, you could just see them everywhere out there. They drift underneath the boat. Yeah. So
when me and LJ were out the other day, and I was watching his forward facing stuff, by the time you saw them here, mm-hmm. and by the time you got ready to pitch at them, hell, they'd done swam under the damn boat.
Yeah,
they were moving. I think that's why we couldn't catch them that day.
They've been doing that for a week.
Yeah.
Well, you think they're running towards the boat?
No, they're
just
moving.
Okay. They're just moving.
I mean, the water temps are still.
Well, we saw some 60.
Yeah, we saw 60 Monday.
Yeah.
Really? I'm 58.5 right now. What are you guys at?
Well, last time I was out there, I was seeing 58, 59.
Where were you at, Jeff?
Today we maxed out at 59.
Yeah.
59.
55 to 59, depending on the unit and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Garmin's reading lower than Lowrance, but there was like 60.5 yesterday.
Yep.
We hit 60 yesterday afternoon on Lowrance.
Did you? Well, I guess, Jack, are we live now?
We're live. Yeah.
Well, welcome to episode number 2 of the Friday Fish Fry. We're talking about ditch fishing right now, and we're just kind of going over what we were doing this week, but I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jeff, what you were saying.
No, you're good. Water temps, I think, are still – the cold front's helping. I think they're still a little warm for there to be an off-the-wall, ditch bite across the board. I think there are some big schools here and there, but it's not what you typically think about when you think of it being crazy ditch bite. Jimmy and I were out, and there's still a lot of fish that are roaming. I mean, you'll see them at 80 fish on your forward-facing sonar. You'll blink, go to grab a spoon or something, and they're already under the boat and gone and 40 feet behind the boat before you can figure out what's going on. So
they're small groups, right?
Yeah, and it's 3 and 4 fish together, and it's not like the big groups of, the big schools. I'm sure there are some big schools here and there, but it's not like it's every 4th or 5th ditch like we'll see or should see later on in the year.
Well, I know here.
definitely some places, but it's not like it's.
Yeah.
I mean, when the ditch bite is really on, you can go repeat exactly what you're doing, and about every fourth or fifth ditch you go to will be like that. Right now, that's not.
No,
that's the exception.
It's hit or miss.
Is.
It's like I've been doing. I might like the day that you and I were out in that ditch. I went back the next day and there wasn't jack there. A couple residual fish.
I
here
don't blame
and
them.
there.
I wouldn't have been there either.
Maybe I caught them all. Nah, but
they haven't set up shop like
exactly.
When they set up in a ditch, you can pretty much count on. 3 out of 4 times you go to that ditch within 100 yards of where you find them, they're going to be there, and they're going to be there for, the next 60 days.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think what we're showing? We was talking before we went on live. We're talking 58 and a half, 59. I think. What do y'all think? Maybe by the time it gets down to 54, 55 degrees.
Yeah, low, yes.
Yeah.
Low 50s.
Low 50s.
Yeah.
And another thing to think about, too, is I've said this before, too, the crawfish spawn when the water's in the 50 to 60 degree range. So I don't know what your fish have been spitting up. Mine have been spitting up a lot of threadfin, but there's been some crawfish pieces mixed in. Now, is yours spitting up kind of a cornucopia?
Yeah, I mean, I've had them coughing up bluegill.
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
So,
most of what I've
bluegill,
seen is
threadfin.
threadfin about like
Threads,
that.
yeah.
About the size of a half-ounce spoon.
Yeah.
So, but, yeah, I mean, I caught one today that coughed up a potato chip-sized bluegill right at the boat.
That must have been a shallow fish. He's probably in there eating brim or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think he came out of, 15 feet of water or so. But, in December, I will generally focus on shallower water, even with ditch fishing, than what a lot of people do. I mean, the last 2 days, I don't think I've caught a single fish deeper than 25 feet of water.
Yeah, lucky you. I'm out there at 40 to 50 feet.
No.
The one that I caught today, the biggest one I caught today, came out of 50-plus feet. I'm pulling into a ditch, and I'm still in about 55 feet of water. And I ain't got no sonar again today, right? So I'm just going by mapping. And so I'm coming into this ditch, and I thought, well, I'm just going to make a cast, right? So I cast up into the ditch, and it's like, I pull up on it, and it loads up, right? And I'm thinking, oh, I hope that's not timber. And about that time, it pulled back, right? So I'm like, oh, it's a fish. So I had him on for about 2 seconds, and he just let go, right? And so I'm like, man, there is fish in there. So I throw back in there, and the very next cast immediately, 3.5, 4 pounder. Might have been the same fish. It might have been a different fish. But I looked at the depth that I caught this fish, kind of pulled up there, and LJ and I put the 9-foot offset on my mapping, so I got an accurate, as far as mapping is concerned, my depth. And that fish came out of almost 50 feet of water. So,
that's
Well, that Friday that we fished side by side out there, I was sitting in about 30 to 35 foot of water, and you were deeper into the ditch
I was
than
40,
what I was.
45, yeah.
You were 40, maybe 50 there.
Yeah, those fish were deep. There was some 50. There was a lot of fish in that 45 to 50, that foot depth. But then, like you say, you're going to go shallow, if the sun's out, it's shining on the rocks, if you go shallow, there's those fish too, the meat eaters.
Well, one of the places that Tom and I caught them yesterday was a place that you and I had checked last week, and there was not a fish one there.
Yeah.
And 2 days ago, I found some fish there, and I went back yesterday, and they were there, and they're set up in about 16 to 18 feet of water, right on the edge of where it drops down into the actual, where a ditch opens up into like a big flat.
Yeah.
And it's right on that break from where the ditch opens up into a flat, and they're camped out just waiting for bait to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's pretty much what he had here a couple of weeks ago, only it was just deeper. Because I think it was where it was more. It's not really a steep incline where we were at. I mean, it's kind of a gradual slope.
Yeah, it was gradual.
But I think where he was sitting at is where it did one of these, because that ditch where we were at was, unless you get on out towards the main creek channel, that ditch is not that deep, and it shallows up pretty quick going
Yeah.
in towards the bank.
Yeah, it's kind of I'd almost call it a flat. in
Yeah,
some
it's
places,
more of a flat than it
than
is.
it is a
Yeah.
ditch, really. It's just kind of a
But
little
they were
dugout
definitely there.
area. Something else that changed for me, too, was like last week, it was like lights out with the white spoon, the little half ounce. I couldn't get bit on that for this week. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't touch that, hardly touch it. I think I caught just a few fish on it, but man, I'm kind of happy it happened. So I'm using the white one. I'm not getting bit on the white one very well. Everyone would chase it, peck at it. So I got when I bought my last bag of spoons, I got 6 packs of white ones and 6 pack of silver ones, the chrome half ounce. And so they've been killing the white, and of course I lose some on the way. I get it hung up, or maybe one will break off, but mainly I get them hung up and have to break off, right? So I was down to my last 2 white spoons, and so they wasn't really biting the white, so I put on a silver one, and I got 6 packs of silver, right? And they're just smoking. This week, they're just crushing the silver one. I mean, I could throw the white in there all day, and they wouldn't hit the white the last 2 days. Today was Wednesday. But it's silver. I was like, thank the Lord that they're hitting the silver, because I was down to my last 2 white ones. So
But the difference being is that day that you were catching them on the white one,
Yeah, it's
really
cloudy.
good, it was cloudy.
yeah.
And we, since this front moved through, since probably Saturday or whatever, it's
Yeah.
been clear blue skies, maybe a stray cloud here and there,
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
been pretty much blue skies.
That's more than likely why the silver or the chrome work the best, because it flashes in the sun,
Yeah.
And I don't know how well it flashes at 30 feet. It's hard to believe that any sunlight's getting down there.
Not well, I wouldn't imagine. I mean, it would be a different.
No.
It's going to be a different shade.
Oh,
so
it
to
is. It's
speak.
dark green.
Yeah, it's going to be darker than what the white is, and have a different shadow to it. But
Yeah.
to think that it's offering a lot of flash at 30 feet.
I've said this before. I've never said it on the podcast, but back when I was striper fishing and I had a downrigger on my boat, I drilled a hole in my downrigger 6-pound weight, and I mounted a waterproof GoPro. I had a GoPro, and I put it in that clear plastic waterproof case that you put it in. And I mounted it on I had a 6-pound downrigger weight, and I mounted it on that because I used to see stripers coming up to chase the downrigger ball.
Right.
And you can see that on the graph. You can see them come up, and they'll go right up to the downrigger ball and go right back down. They're just curious. They want to know what that is. Because when you got a stainless steel cable on a downrigger, I don't know if y'all ever heard it, it makes it just makes this constant grinding noise, right? If you use a steel cable. If you use a heavy braid, it won't do that. But when you use a steel cable, it always makes this. And so I don't know whether the stripers were coming up because they hear that that grinding sound, or it's the ball, they pick up the ball with their, lateral lines or whatever. But so I was like, okay, I want to videotape these stripers coming up and checking out the ball. So I mounted my GoPro on the ball, pointed it aft, pointed to the back of the ball, and dropped it down. And I learned real quick after the first day of recording that when you drop something down 30 feet in Lake Lanier, you're not going to see that far.
It's dark.
It's dark, and maybe if I could see behind the ball 2 feet, I was lucky.
Yeah.
So there was no way you'd see that striper. He's coming up from down below, and he's probably 2 feet behind it at least. So the only thing that I saw with the GoPro down at 30 feet was when I'd run it through a big school of bluebacks or threadfin, you'd see them zooming by. Just real quick, you'd see bluebacks or threadfin zooming by the camera lens. But as far as seeing any length at 30 plus feet, it's all
There's not a lot of visibility down there.
No, so you take a half ounce chrome spoon at 30 to 40 feet bouncing around, you're probably not getting too much sunlight and flashing down there like that. So
Before I moved to Georgia, I had some friends who scuba dived, and we used to camp at Tim's Ford Lake, which is a deep, clear
Oh, I know,
Highland lake, and it's clear. I mean, I don't know if it's as clear as Lanier, but it's pretty clear. But anyway, I talked them into letting me go down one time with the gear on, and one of them went with me, and I was in 20 foot of water, and at 20 foot of water, you couldn't see your hand from your face.
yeah.
So at 30 foot, I don't think you're
Yeah,
going to
you're
see
not gonna
much.
get
But
much.
but the fish's eyes are different from our eyes.
Oh
too,
yeah,
So, you know.
8 times. It's like 8 times better or
Yep.
something like that
Yep.
than our eyes. I don't know.
But
if
I
they
learned a
can
whole
do
lot just that 20 or 30 minutes that I dove that day. But
Yeah.
what you cannot see when you dive.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, when you get down that deep, it's, you're kind of limited as far as what the fish is going to see and how far he's going to see it from. So, as far as the difference between a white spoon and a chrome spoon, I don't know. But anyway.
I just know a white one seems to work better when it's cloudy. And
Oh, yeah. It probably
one
shows
seems-
up better when it's cloudy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was that deal, and you guys talking about the Demiki, that bite, little swim bait bite picking up, and you caught. We won't give away what you're gonna give in your report later, but it seemed like yesterday when I was out, I'd bounce that spoon around and I'd catch fish on it, but I know that they're after a while, 30 minutes to an hour of making the same fan cast, sitting on the same place, they were probably at some point go, well, now wait a minute, we started this with 10 of us, and now there's 3 of us, and there's this white thing jumping around. Maybe we shouldn't bite the white thing. So I pull out the Demiki, right, and I started dragging the Demiki because I just wanted to change it up, right? And it's kind of like what you said. It's not like full blown. I mean, they pecked at it,
Yes.
They pecked at it a lot, like they wasn't really sure, but some of them would commit to it with a good pop, and they were on there.
Right. And I saw that today a number of times where it almost felt like I was hitting rock, but it wasn't. And it was like peck, peck. And I'm like, I ought to be getting bit like that. My rod ought to load up. And then like the 4th or 5th time, it would finally... it would be different, and I'm like, there is a fish there. I knew there was a fish behind that thing bumping it. And
so
that happened.
subtle.
Extremely subtle. And that's, I was talking to my client today. I'm like, the bites will be very hard sometimes, but then also they'll be extremely subtle. And you just kind of have to learn what the bottom feels like, what a rock bottom feels like, what a soft bottom feels like. And then if you feel anything that doesn't fall in those 2 categories, or what wood feels like, then it's a bite. And it's not always the pop, but it can be all of a sudden there's nothing there. Or if your rate of retrieve is, you're going bop, bop, bop on rocks, and then all of a sudden it goes bop, bop. That second one that's
Probably
a fish. Yeah, that's a fish. That's not a rock. I mean, you haven't changed anything about your rate of return or that. And there's some rare exceptions for that, like if you were on some submerged riprap or something where it might do. But generally speaking, you get into a pattern and you learn a pattern for a particular hole. And when you feel something that doesn't feel like what you've been feeling for the last 20 minutes, it's a fish.
Yeah, go ahead and swing on it.
Burn that
When
real
in doubt,
handle.
jerk.
Hey, they're free,
Jerk on that end because you got to jerk on this end.
When you're using a shaky head, sometimes that shaky head bite is so subtle. It's like
Well, the last week and a half, it's been subtle. Like you're not feeling bites. You're just feeling it just gets heavy.
Well, that's like
suck
when
it
they
in.
first start in the spring, going to the docks and stuff. But pre-spawn, you throw in there and you don't even know you got anything on, and the line's swimming back out towards your boat.
yeah.
So
That's a lot of it. That happens a lot with dock fishing. Is they pick it up and come right towards you, and you really don't know it until it's like you got all this slack, and you're like, oh, when I hit when this tightens up,
Like the wind's not blowing that hard.
exactly, yeah.
It didn't take off 42 feet of line here.
Yeah, so that's always a good feeling when you're reeling up all that slack and you know that you didn't leave that much slack.
Well, and the other thing is, I mentioned this today too, is spotted bass seem to run downhill. When they pick up a worm,
Exactly.
they run downhill.
Deeper water.
A largemouth will pick it up and runs laterally. So
Right,
whatever
sideways.
depth, whatever depth he's at, he's going to stay at.
Yeah.
A spot runs downhill. So, when you go to, I can't tell you how many times with a largemouth you go to pick up and you go to pick your line up and your bait and your line's at a 20-degree angle off of where it should be.
Yeah.
From what I've experienced, spots will do that on occasion, but that's not the norm. The norm is you go to pick it up and it's not there, and the fish is 3/4 of the way back to the boat. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh crap, there he is.
Well, that, last year, that one that I caught fishing with you off of that log back there in that, pocket, it's in the same ditch. It's back at the very back.
Jimmy's
of it.
hot spot.
Yeah.
one of my hot spots
that
back
was a
there.
good one.
Yeah, but I threw out there and I turned around to say something to Jeff and I clicked the bail and I looked back and my line was over here.
Yeah.
I mean, that fish had moved 20, 25 feet and just, like that. And then quite fun whenever I set the hook and she
Yeah.
come out of the water. But that's one of the rare exceptions though. But this was not anywhere near a dock either. It was actually between docks and on a piece of cover.
Yeah.
But on the dock, they're most of the time when I catch them on shaky head with the dock, they come.
They
pretty
come
much straight
downhill.
to you,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. I'm just wondering. I just thought about this. I wonder since the bite, the bite with the little swim baits hasn't really taken off real good yet.
Not real good. Although the last 2 days have been better than any day since I've been back from the woods.
Now,
So
I'm wondering
I
if
was
you
tickled.
if you could take and if you got any JJ's Magic or something, just dip the tail in it.
Mm-hmm.
That might like sell them on it a little bit more.
Well, I had one or two today bit the tail off.
Yeah, man, when they bite the tail off, they know what's up. They know they're short striking it for a reason. You know, they know better than to suck the whole thing in.
Well, even when it comes to a shaky head fishing, yesterday, Tom and I, we downsized our baits big time on a shaky head.
Like what size? 4 inch?
Like 4 inch. I mean, he was cutting 1 inch to 1.5 inches off of a Cinco, and then I was using Benji's little 4-inch tamales.
Was that getting bit?
Oh heck yeah, it was getting bit.
There you go.
It sure was.
Yeah.
Of course today I go back and they're biting the big one again, but
Yeah.
But yesterday, I mean, it had to be you could put a big one on, but you would never get a hook in the fish if you had a big one.
Yeah.
I've done that in the spring. They wouldn't really bite the tail off, but they bite it off right behind the hook.
Yeah.
So I can go in, instead of going with a 7-inch, say, trick worm, I'd go with a 4 3/4 inch or bite the trick worm off
Yeah.
and go with a shorter worm and then start catching fish. They just would not take the whole bait. They
Sometimes
just,
they're like that.
Just short striking it.
So, how about the underspin spot chokers? Have you been using that at all?
I threw it a little bit yesterday and caught one striper on it.
Did you really? Decent or?
Nah, about 3 pounds.
Oh, well, that's something anyway. I mean, that bite's going to take off, and
No, it is taking off. I mean, Brett Matthews did phenomenal on a 1/4 ounce, the new 1/4 ounce finesse spot choker over on Altoona this past Saturday.
1/4 ounce finesse.
Yes, he's got a 1/4 ounce finesse one. It has the hook keeper is narrower, so when you start looking at baits like, the Echo or other smaller thin profile baits, it doesn't blow it out. Even the Prodigy, it fits on the bait better. It doesn't blow out the head widthwise, so it stays more streamlined and
And you
it
can't
works
pull
better.
the bait off of it.
And you still can't pull it
That's
off, so
good.
it's still
It's
got the
got,
same.
Man,
when
that's
you
good.
push it up on there and lock it in place, you can take the head of the spot choker and the tail of whatever you're using and do this with it and it
Yeah.
doesn't come off.
Man, that's good because that's really important too.
You don't go through a whole lot of baits. That's
Yeah.
a good thing.
Yeah, you save a few on the baits that way. So,
So, Robbie, if you see this, you did a good job, son.
yeah, I was just going to say thanks to Robbie, and Spot Choker is one of our sponsors, so I wanted to give Robbie a shout out.
That bite's coming.
Yeah, I know.
And if you stick with it, it's probably working better now than what I can sit here and speak to. It's just I don't throw it as much as I probably should because I've got so much confidence in my other two things that I do, and that's just you getting ruts. But there are definitely times when it will outproduce a standard ball head, hands down, bar none, not even a second question about it.
Well, yeah, too. We get a little deeper into the ditch bite, the water. We get that water temp down to close to 50 when it's actually going to get down. Some of the coldest water temps that we're going to get is when it shines the best.
Right. I agree completely.
Because that's when the fish get their slowest, because their metabolism is their slowest when that water temp gets down into the high 40s to mid 40s. And when it gets down like that, it just seems like the underspin dragging it, as slow as a three-toed sloth in the deepest part of stuff will get the best bites.
And
like
then
watching paint dry.
Yeah, and that will continue all the way up into the pre-spawn. You just instead of winding it on the bottom, you just raise it up a little bit, but you're still, you go from a 3/8 to a quarter. And, you start fishing around halfway down in the water column around deep boat docks, sailboats.
Yeah.
Sailboats I've had days where I did nothing but run sailboats.
Yeah.
I didn't fish it. If it wasn't a sailboat, I didn't stop the boat. I just kept moving until I found sailboats. When I found sailboats, I fished.
Well, that's got something new. I've never heard of the sailboat bite before.
Yeah, sailboat.
That ranks up there with the osprey nest bite that we had, if you remember that.
Yeah, the osprey nest was a good one.
That was a good one. Now we got sailboats and we've got osprey nests. So what's next? Who knows? But cell towers, something like that. So anyway, we talked about Robbie's underspin. We talked about our spoon a little bit, our half-ounce spoon bite. And then the swim bait a little bit, but I wanted to touch base on the crankbait a little bit. And Jimmy and I, we like to fish it. Jeff, you crank guy, aren't you?
I have been at times, yes.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, I haven't thrown it near as much as I used to, but I used to throw it in the winter. I mean, that was my go-to deal, that and a shaky head for years in the winter.
Yeah.
I would throw a 5XD and wind it. I'd have at least two on the deck.
Yeah.
At least two.
Well, I've been thinking about it here lately, man. It's like that for me is some of these bait, I don't know, it's probably the same way for y'all, but some of these baits just pop into my head because I can remember years past that I've caught them this time of year on a certain bait, and it just kind of rises to the surface and pops up. And I was thinking about Jimmy and I and in past years using crankbaits back here, kind of in the back of the creek on the rocky stuff. But I broke this out. The crankbait right here, this is a DT10, Rapala DT10, and that's a craw pattern. And I pulled this out of an old bag. I had it in an old bag because this thing has reached the Hall of Fame. But I wanted to talk just a little bit about, it's not just about the DT10, but this one right here, the reason I drug it out is because I think it was 9 or 10 years ago, I entered my first BFL Bulldog Series here on Lanier. And it was the first one, and I was going to fish as a co-angler. So I signed up as a co-angler, and then Lisa told me, she said, Jim, she said, to be honest with you, you don't get along very well with people. So for you to be in the back seat
I've never seen that side of it.
Yeah, I know. You guys, I know you guys haven't. But anyway, I've been told that before. So anyway, Lisa tells me, she said, maybe you ought to scrap being a backseater and just be a front seater. That way you're not at the mercy of somebody else because you might get mad. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? You got a point. So So I called them up. I said, I want to be a boater now. I don't want to be a co-angler. And they're like, okay, So they put me down as a boater, and I got my buddy. He was going to fish it, so he was my co. We both jumped in it, and so I didn't know what I was doing, really. And it's seriously, this is a time where I hadn't been bass fishing, but just a few years, but I wanted to get that experience of fishing in a BFL, you know? And so I only had 2 rods. I only had 2 spinning rods. I mean, that's all I had, right? And so I'd been having some luck with this crankbait. So that one right there, this one in the bag, and so I get into BFL, and what I did all day long was this little sucker right here, this crankbait right here. The reason it's in a bag is because I used it all day. I only had 2 rods. The other rod had a spoon or something on it. But anyway, I just come into the creek. I knew exactly what I was going to do with this crankbait, and all I did was I fished that crankbait all day. My poor backseater, too. I mean, this guy had to endure me just throwing a crankbait on the rocks, and he had to fend for himself in the back. That poor guy. It was below freezing when we rode down from up north. And if you've ever rode from Laurel all the way down to the back of Ball Ridge, that's about as far as you can go on Lake.
Yeah, there's
Lanier.
not much more.
Not much more to the lake than that. About 9 miles, and sub freezing temperatures, and he's underdressed. And I told the dude, I said, best thing you can do is just curl up into a tight ball because we're fixing to make the longest, coldest run you've ever made. And when we got back here to the back, he's like, I can't fish. And I was like, I can't feel my fingers. I'm like, well, you just warm up. I'm going to throw this crankbait. I threw that crankbait all day, and I caught 5 fish, right? And it was good enough to cash a check. I got like 16th place out of 150 boats. And I just threw that crankbait all day long for 5 fish, and I caught those 5 fish on that crankbait and got that check in my first BFL. And so I retired the crankbait. But that was my motivating story about crankbaits. But anyway, I've been using crankbaits all along, and I'm starting to get that feeling that the crankbait is probably going to work out there,
Well, I remember it also when I did my best on crankbaits is when the lake was down like it is now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's when I had some of my best, the most confidence in the crankbait. And one of the things I would do, everybody thinks rock. Yeah, rock's good. Mm-hmm. But I would go back in the back of clean, basically in the very backs of ditches or clean sandy pockets. It had to be clean and it had to be sand.
Yeah.
And if you could find that white, clean sand that was in like 8 to 10 feet of water, it was not a numbers game. It wasn't something you're going to go and catch 20 or 30. But the ones that you hooked were 4 pluses.
Yeah, they were going to be good ones.
They were going to be really good ones.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that DT10. And another thing to think about, too, is when the Bassmaster Elite Series was here, about 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, 2018.
2018.
5 years. There was a group of guys that were throwing cranks, if you remember. They were throwing that little orange, it was a DT6, and they were throwing it up north, if you guys remember.
Yep.
So they were on that whole, there was guys down here in the middle of the lake throwing the little Damiki swim bait, dragging it around humps in the middle of the lake. But there was a whole other group of guys that were up north, and they were throwing that little DT6, and they were hanging with the guys that were down here, forward-facing sonar, throwing at these fish out here on humps on the main lake and stuff. So, those guys were throwing that little DT6 in that demon. I think it was a demon craw pattern or something like that. And
It's the red.
Yeah.
A reddish crawl pattern. It's called demon.
Yeah, and it's a crawfish molting color. But, I mean, that's something, and I won't tell the big story about this, but that's another one that I've got a pretty good story about. That's a DT6 in a shad pattern. And I had a buddy, him and I both fished a tournament not too long ago. And he caught all his big ones on that DT6 and that shad pattern. And so it got me to believing that, you know, these fish are eating a lot of shad right now, a lot of shad. So you put that in the right place, they're going to eat that, you know. And like you were saying, go back to the back of these ditches, go in these pockets early in the morning.
Yep.
Throw that little DT6 around back in the back of the pockets, and I guarantee you're going to get bit on it, you know. That was... I'd never seen that pattern. Of course, I'd seen a DT6 before, but I'd never seen that pattern before. And my buddy, he used to belong to the Joe. His name's Joe. He used to belong to the Duluth Bass Club way back in. Remember the Duluth Bass Club? And so we were out one day and we were throwing cranks, and he pops this one out and he goes, "This big secret from way back when, you know, it's like 20 years ago, the Duluth Bass Club, you know, they were catching all that." And so anyway, he tides this on in the back of the boat. Now I'm in the front of the boat, and I'm throwing my DT10 or whatever, XD5, and here he comes throwing this little sucker from the back of the boat, and all of a sudden I feel the boat jerk, right, and I turn around, and he's like hooking one, you know. So he gets that one to the boat, and then he throws back, and he's just steady catching them in the back of the boat with that little DT6, dragging that around. I'm in the front of the boat getting a choice of everything and not catching hardly anything. But anyway, that was another little crankbait that worked. So there were two patterns. There's the craw pattern when the temperature's in the 50s, the water temp's in the 50s and down into the 40s. And then there's the DT6 and the shad pattern. And so that's a couple good kind of starter crankbaits. And then, like, you go a little deeper with an XD5 or something like that.
But it's still the same. It's their shad pattern. You know, green
Yeah.
gizzard shad is the old standby. And then there's a sexy blueback herring, which I've done really good on in the past, too. So both of those. But, yeah, and yes, I'm throwing a 5XD, but I am wearing the bill off the 5XD. I mean, that thing is clicking and banging and grinding into the bottom and
Well,
doing
you're
it.
looking at something that'll run, depending on line size, 15 to 18 foot more than likely, and you're probably fishing it
8 to 12.
right.
Yeah, you're digging up some.
Yeah.
And if you ain't coming back with red Georgia clay on that bill, you're probably doing something wrong, you know.
Right.
It's not digging in enough, so... I mean, that's all kind of natural because, you know, when some of these crawfish, when they're scooting on the bottom, they're kicking up stuff as they go. So, you know, and then if it hits rocks, it clicks, you know, and it makes it sound like a crawfish. So,
We've caught a few fish on crankbaits you used to paint. I used to be on, back when I first met Jim and you lived in the other house, I was on his work for crankbaits deal. I'd go over and he would have maybe a dozen, 20 out, and he'd paint one. I'd go hang it. He'd paint the next one, and by the time he got to the last one, I was bringing the first one back. And
we were painting, we were putting different coats, different colors.
coats on them.
So we were
give him a little bit of drying time.
Yeah.
And it just saved him. I wasn't doing a whole lot. I was his foot guy. I was running the
Yeah,
base.
it increases efficiency.
Right.
I mean, it's things you're like, oh, I'm not really doing a whole lot, but you're
But that
cutting
was-
the amount of time down in half.
Yeah, but Jim would tell
Yeah.
people that I was on his work for crankbaits program. I'd go do that, and I'd wind up leaving there with 2 or 3 crankbaits every time I went over there.
It only cost me like 3 or 4 crankbaits every time he came over. to
Yeah, I was
work
cheap
for me.
labor.
Yeah,
I
it
was cheap.
Yeah. But so crankbait always a good one. And I was just going through some of the baits. I had 6 rods laid out here earlier, but I thought that might be a little overkill for tonight. But anyway, there was another one that I had. That was the jig. The jig. We can't forget about the jig. I've got it tied on one of my rods right now. As a matter of fact, it's probably right behind me, but somewhere back there. I don't know where it's at. But I got a jig. I got a jig rod ready to go. Have you been throwing a jig at all yet?
Not really. I've got one tied on. I threw it just a little bit, but I need to start throwing it more.
Yeah.
I really do. I think I'm probably going to throw it more on some days when I don't have clients. I get a lot of my clients this time of year. They ditch. So I spend a lot of time focusing and making sure I'm ready for rocking and rolling on that. But yeah. A jig bite can be phenomenal. this time of the year.
Oh, I know. I watched you. What was it? We were out. You were throwing a jig. I was throwing a shaky head. I don't know if you remember this. This was late last winter, I believe. And we were out on the main lake, and we pulled up to one kind of a rock pile point. You got the jig. I got the shaky head. Your jig did better than my shaky head. And I was just like, dang, man. I couldn't believe it because you throw the jig in there, I throw the shaky head in there. I'm expecting you not to get bit. I'm expecting to get bit. I'm expecting the shaky head. And you pop a 3.5, a 4, and I'm like, dang, man. She throws the jig back in there, and bam, another one. And I'm just like, what's up with this jig, that I'll always remember that, even though it was only a year ago. It's stuck in my mind now because I watched you catch those fish on that jig. It's not that I haven't used a jig before. I don't know how to use one, but it's just that I haven't developed that, that trust in it, I guess you could say. So I just don't use it.
I mean, there was definitely a time when I did not have trust in a jig at all. And I was like, I ain't catch fish in this thing. And then once you catch them a few times and you have a little bit of success with it, then that builds your confidence in it. And then you can pick it up and you can throw it. And if you have a guy like with you that day in the boat, like you're a phenomenal shaky head fisherman. And then if you're fishing a partner deal, if one of you is throwing a jig and the other one's throwing a shaky head, you're covering the full basis. I mean, if a fish is going to hit a bottom contact bait, he's going to hit one of those two things. And if you have two guys who are really good at throwing both of them, you can cover some water very efficiently and relatively quickly as far as you can, dragging something on the bottom. But
And a jig is notorious for catching the bigger fish.
Oh God,
a majority of the time too.
But you will catch some little ones on it too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I envy those guys because I think that a lot of guys that are good with the jig, they know where to throw the jig. Where I'm just kind of like willy nilly. I don't.
Well, that and they will put it in their hand for 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
They will throw.
They'll hang with it.
They will throw one rod. They will throw it for 8 hours, and they will get 5 to 7 bites. But those 5 to 7 bites are all 4 pluses.
Man.
And the guys that are real good with it can put it in places where I can't put it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like skipping under dogs or something like I stink at that too.
I'll tell you another thing. You're talking about the jig. Another thing that will play this time of the year if you've got a little wind is a jerkbait.
Oh
hard jerkbait.
Got it right here.
Yep.
Just I pulled that out, the mixed stick. That's a 115 mixed stick. I don't know why I keep hitting this mic. But do you use that, Jimmy?
I use a mixed stick, and I use.
I've got a few. I don't throw them a whole lot. I'm more of a mega bass.
Oh, your mega bass, like 110, 110 plus.
110, a 110 plus, and then the junior, the 110 junior, which is like about a 95.
Okay.
So I fish a Strike King a little bit.
Yeah. Strike King's always good.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can't get them anymore, but a Shad Rap.
Shad Rap, yeah. I was just talking to somebody about Shad Rap. Yeah.
Well, I think I brought this up our last podcast when we were talking about favorite plugs and stuff.
Yeah.
But you can't get them anymore. I don't forgot what the thing that took over after they. I don't forget what they call it.
Rapala, right?
Yeah, it's Rapala.
It's a Rapala jerkbait. It's not a Shad Rap. It's like a jerk wrap or
yeah.
It's some. But I mean yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've got a couple of them, and they do catch fish. They got a white one that's awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, now the 115 mixed stick, I drug this out, and the reason why I'm going to hook myself. The reason why I drug it out is Eric Aldrich gave me this one right here.
I was wondering if you got that from
he
Eric.
swears by those.
Yeah, Eric, being sponsored by Spro and knowing Eric has its advantages.
Yeah, so I was talking to him about these. He gave me this, and man, they use these for dock lights at night too. This is spectacular.
He stupid fishes with them.
Yeah,
throw it out,
steady crank,
no action whatsoever.
I couldn't figure that out because I tried that, and it's. I thought, well, Eric says in his reports, I'm just giving it a steady crank back, and I tried steady cranking. I couldn't catch anything. But I mean, I've caught them on a lot of other jerk baits too. I used to make a lot of jerk baits, and I had my favorites that I used. But that was another one. When we get into winter, the jerk bait right smack in the middle of the ditches. I mean, if you can get a suspending jerk bait, my favorite color was always blue, but this will work just fine. A lot of jerk baits will work just fine. The trick with that is, and I did this. This is a true story. The bite with the jerk bait in February is so slow. There was a time when I'd throw it out there and I'd jerk it back to the boat, just go.
Yeah,
so I'm like, oh no. The best thing you can do in February with that jerk bait is throw it out there, and I proved this. Jerk it about 3 times, and then just let it set.
Yep.
And just wait.
Yep.
And if it's suspending, if it's not sinking or it's not floating, if it's suspended, and it suspends halfway level, maybe you might have a little nose down or something like that. But if it suspends halfway level, you're going to get bit on it,
Yep.
Those fish that see that jerk bait, they see that thing when it stops and it just sits there. They're like, okay, now I'll eat it. But their metabolism is so slow.
They're not in the
gonna
mood to
chase
chase.
them.
Well,
Yeah.
that's and the thing too, that forward-facing sonar comes into big time play with that, because you can find fish suspended about 10 feet down, sitting in the middle of the ditches, and you can target those individual fish, and you can just, and yes, that works. It works very well.
Oh, I'm sure. I didn't even think about forward fish. See, I don't have it, so I don't even think about it.
Yeah, but you're gonna have it.
Maybe, but I mean, I can't afford it. But it's just kind of changed fishing, I think, so much. It's taken so much work out of it as far as.
But the same argument was made about side scan and down scan.
Scan,
I mean, the same exact arguments that are being made about forward-facing sonar were made about side scan and down scan back in the early 2000s.
I don't know if it's to this degree, though. Do you think? This
Yeah,
is
because I mean, I
serious.
remember reading stuff. Well, that's with side scan, for example. Well, that's BS. So and so can just idle down the bank, and he doesn't have to fish every single dock. He can idle down the bank and see if there's a fish under the dock, and then go target that fish on that pole.
But I don't remember the back and forth good bad with side scan, down scan. It just seems like forward facing sonar is kind of a different animal in an argument, Everybody was willing to buy. I thought everybody's willing to buy into side scan and down scan and the latest scans that you had. But now forward facing sonar comes out. And the dudes that don't have it, they're like, I don't know. And the dudes that do have it are like, yeah, man, this is the best thing since sliced bread. But you got old dudes like me that are like old school, It's not like I don't like it, but it's like, I think it's going to change things,
Well, I do think that fish are starting to get conditioned.
The ping.
I've heard that. Yeah. That's what I think Matt O'Connell told me one time, that over on Hartwell, when him and somebody else were pulling up to fish a spot where they saw fish, the fish would run towards the boat in just about every instance, and they'd have to put it in reverse and back up to back away to target those fish, because they were always running at the boat, and they deduced that they were running at the boat because of the ping from forward-facing sonar, So that's when you say conditioned, is that what you're talking about?
Right, and the fish learn, and they start to associate, the ping with not so happy endings.
Danger.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, once they feel the hook and in relation to the ping they heard, they learn.
I mean, there's times, when the ditch bite really sets up and I'm not using sonar as much, I will turn off all my graphs.
Yeah.
Like I will, when I get to an area that I know, and I may leave my map on, but I'll turn all the graphs off and I'll just fish. And that kind of brings us back, because it is fall time frame, not to change the subject, but mapping, when it comes to ditch fishing, mapping or sonar, which is more important?
mapping.
If you had to only have one, would you have
Well, he's proved
great
that.
mapping or would you have sonar?
I'm gonna say mapping. 'Cause
Yeah,
you proved that.
I'm going to say mapping too.
Yeah.
But if you were to go peruse, a lot of social media and what everybody talks about, sonar. You got to you got to find them and find them.
Yeah.
I find more fish with the mapping in the wintertime than I do with.
But that's because you know
Sonar.
from experience where they're supposed to be.
Exactly.
Right, but
Yeah.
and I'm also willing to fish an area where I won't see fish because I know I have all the other, I have all the ingredients for there to be fish there. So I'm not going to idle over and ping my fish and everything else beforehand. I will back off, and then I have my little system that I go through. And if I don't get bit, then I leave, and I don't waste a ton of time messing with them. But at the same time, if I had to choose between one or the other, I would choose mapping hands down and not even think twice about it in the wintertime.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I went with nothing but mapping for the last 2 months, and I probably caught more fish without it than I would have caught with it. And the reason being is I couldn't see. I wouldn't drive through an area. If I had sonar, I might drive through a ditch and say,
Look,
there ain't no fish here.
Yeah.
Move on to the next ditch.
When in
Which
fact
just-
there were fish there.
Exactly. They're
Glued.
just stuck to the bottom.
they're
You and
glued.
I proved that.
Yep.
And, but it's like earlier I was saying that the place that I hit today, I had to get the fish going. I don't know whether we were actually recording when I was talking about that, but when I pulled up to the spot today, yesterday, it was yesterday, I was marking fish and I was bouncing the spoon. I mean, there was fish under the boat. I'd drop the spoon down, they'd chase it up, chase it down, and they just wouldn't bite it, which was the deal. You want them to bite it. And so I started casting the spoon, cast it 6, 7 times, nothing. And then all of a sudden, bam, I catch one on a cast. And when I brought it back to the boat, I looked at the graph, and it was like spaghetti. I drugged the whole school. Busted them up.
And if you would have had forward-facing sonar, you would have seen a completely slick bottom turn into a moving bottom.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
they would.
They would come up and flutter and do something.
Yeah.
And you'll even see that sometimes where even if you don't get bit, like you could have your forward-facing sonar looking, and you'll bring a spoon through, or your ball head with your Kitech on it, or your Prodigy, or your Underspin, or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And you'll be looking forward, and the bottom will be completely, no sign of life to be had. Nothing out there. And then you're bringing your bait back, and then all of a sudden the bottom just
Lights up, yeah.
and goes back down. And as soon as that happens, and I see that, then it's spot lock, it's put the units in standby, and I'm making the exact same cast, and I will usually catch those fish.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I saw both yesterday and today, and I see it every year, is, when these fish are glued to the bottom like that, and you're fishing a flat bottom, like the places I was at today, one place in particular, and this happened this morning when I was out there, I was just fishing flat bottom. And so I'm just kind of moving along slowly, and I'm looking at the sonar, and so there's just something different on the bottom. You could just see this flat bottom, and then there was just a little hump, just like that, just a little hump.
A little bit different color than your bottom, too.
A little something different. So I dropped the spoon on that something different, and that something different turned into a lot of something different. But it was just a slight contour change, just something that looked just a little bit different. Was a big old school of fish, Yep. But if I wouldn't have dropped on that little something that looked different, if I wouldn't have dropped my spoon down there, I just passed it up, and made another cast or whatever. But when I dropped it down, what I had to do was I had to get the fish fired up. They were all laying on the bottom. There was in places there was bait that was 3 feet thick to 5 feet thick just smack laying on the bottom with fish in it. But I actually had to catch fish, get the fish moving, pull that whole school up. Now they're all kind of swimming around. Cast again. I catch another one from another group that was over there on that cast. And by the way, man, I can bomb that spoon a long ways, you know. And cast it, catch another one, 5 more come back with that one. The one that I caught before, he had drugged 10 with him. Now you got like 15 fish just kind of swimming around.
Well, it's no different than lighting a school up on a ledge in the summer.
Yeah.
It's the
Once you
same
get them
principle.
lit up.
Once you get them lit up, then it's game on.
Yeah, and it like the hydro wave. I talked about this. This dude's pulled the hydra, that old junky hydro wave off my boat that's been on there for 7 years.
You take it and you shake it and
It's
slices.
full of water. Yeah, it was full of water. It'd
Yeah, I
been
saw
on there
that
so
at
long.
JLJ's the other day.
Yeah, but you know, speaking about getting the school fired up, when I was over on Gunnersville fishing ledges, once I caught 1 or 2 off a shell bed on a ledge. You start up that hydro wave and crank that up, and they've got like about 18 different sounds on that thing. You hit that shad sound, which is just basically a clicking sound. Man, those fish are just going crazy all over the place. It was like once you fired up that hydro wave. Now, this is Gunnersville. You know, this is Tennessee River. You know, they just get all fired up. But I couldn't make it work here. These spotted bass, they're a different animal. They wasn't like the largemouth on Gunnersville.
Yeah, well,
You know.
take the book of bass fishing and throw it out the window when it comes to Lanier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Just
Spotted bass.
Yeah, just
no.
throw it out of the window.
And the
bass.
spotted bass in the Tennessee River are different from our spotted bass.
Yeah.
They're correct me if I'm wrong, that's a Kentucky spotted
Yeah.
bass, and we have the Alabama spotted bass.
And the
Different
Kentuckies, the Kentuckies, I don't think get as big.
They don't get as big, no. I mean,
Yeah.
no.
Well, it's like a Florida strain and a northern strain
Yeah.
Yeah,
largemouth.
yeah, it is. Yeah, and the spots that I did catch on Gunnersville when I used to fish Gunnersville were always small. I never caught a spot over 2 pounds over there.
Well, if you watch, say, the MLF, they're fishing these lakes and wherever that's got spotted and largemouth. You never see them, very seldom do you see them catch a spot over 3 pounds. And
Yeah.
when they catch a 3-pound spot, they think they've caught a wall hanger.
Yeah,
They just haven't been to the right spot.
exactly. They ain't been to
They ain't
Lanier.
been to the right lake.
Yeah. So let me see. There was one more that I wanted to talk about, and I probably wouldn't have mentioned it, but I saw a video from, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago today, December, whatever today is. It came up in my memories. And I had on a white seabill, a pearl seabill, and I was in the back of a pocket. If you watch the video that I posted earlier today from 5 years ago, you'll recognize the pocket. I know you will, and, well, you both will. But anyway, I was back there bass fishing, and I'd seen a couple stripers just coming up in the middle of that bay. And I had that white seabill, pearl seabill, tied on. I chunked it in there, and I caught one of those big stripers, and I had it on video. So I was going to say, if the 6th rod, the last one, we've covered 5 baits, the 6th one was the pearl seabill. So I always recommend that you keep one of those tied on, if not for a surfacing bass, a surfacing striper. So
Well, if you've looked at my spoon box, I keep 2 topwater baits.
I saw that, the other day. I was wondering what that was all
Yeah,
about.
so because, I rotate through. I have a general rule of thumb in my boat that all of my tackle has to fit in my center compartment.
Yeah.
So, and that just keeps space free for clients and keeps me from overloading and having way too much stuff. So when I pull all my topwater stuff out, I was like, because I had a time, I guess it was 2 years ago in December, like December 18th, I had a buddy of mine that I went to high school with come up. I caught fish on a gunfish in the back of a ditch next to docks on a
When?
gunfish.
And when? What time?
December 18th.
Oh, December 18th. Yeah, that's
On a gunfish.
odd.
And it wasn't just one. I mean, I think I caught like 4 of them that were back there. So, and then I had heard some things. So what I did is I took I've got 2 topwater baits. I have a chrome one and a bone one that stay in my spoon box. So I know no matter what time of the year it is, I will have a topwater bait in the boat. And if for some reason, we get a warming trend, or I happen to look back and there's fish blowing bait up in the back, then I can reach in, grab one of those, put it on a spoon rod, because I throw my spoons on my topwater rod anyway.
Yeah.
So I can do a quick, and then, make a cast or 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever, and I have that bait there. So it's just, there's 2 of them that are in my spoon box.
Well, that's at least you got a spoon box, Jeff. I was going to say my spoons are in a double wrapped in a grocery bag. So
That works too. That works too.
It's pretty efficient compared
It
to
is.
me. Yeah. I got
Either
like
that or laying in the bottom of the boat.
yeah, most of it's laying in the bottom of a boat collecting rust. But you got a gut pile too.
I've been known to have a.
Yes.
I cleaned that out. I cleaned that out yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I spent about 2 hours.
I admired it Monday while we were out there.
It
He
big?
had all kind of stuff in there.
Man, I had to clean mine out. I had company.
I had an OG left in there.
Yeah, there was a chrome gunfish there.
Gunfish.
I got a half a gunfish still laying on the bottom.
Assorted soft plastics. Yeah.
All right, so I think we've covered about all the baits that I wanted to cover, but I wanted to give a shout out to Jennifer and for her apparel. She's our second sponsor. We got 2 sponsors now, so we're gonna work on some more. But we got Jennifer was our first, and Robbie was our second. So I want to give a shout out to Jennifer and for her. But I wanted to talk about deer hunting for just a minute. Man, my buddy was going to go fishing with me Friday, and he called me today, and he'd been to get his tag for his truck or whatever, registration renewal, and here in Cumming, he told me he was pulling out of the parking lot here in Cumming after he got his registration done, and he said, I look, and there's this, where the school is, the school's there, and he said, there's this monster buck, to come running across the road right there, He said, yeah, this is almost in town,
Yep.
So he was out at his deer camp down in South Georgia like last weekend, and he got 1 buck, and so he told me instead of going fishing with me Friday, he was loading up the truck to go back. He said, man, once I saw that big buck over there, he said, I just got the fever. He said, I had to go back. So he's on his way back down to, he's probably there by now, but he was heading back down to deer camp for the next 4 days. So I was you just got back from Missouri, Jeff, and you got like did you get 2 bucks?
Yes, I did.
On your trip?
I did.
Okay, yeah. Jeff had some video. He shared it with me already. He sent me a couple videos, and he had this pretty cool video of a buck that was kind of kicking around a doe that you had shot. Is that what happened?
I had shot a doe. It was the last day of bow season before rifle season started, and I had some buddies coming to stay with me that were going to hunt their farm, and I was like, I'm going to shoot a doe that I see for basically camp meat, so to speak. And this doe showed up, and a yearling. It wasn't. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, it was a 170-pound doe. I did shoot one of those too, but it was a yearling because why? They taste great, and this one was being shot to eat, so I wasn't going to be picky.
Yeah.
And I shot her at like 7 yards in front of me, and she ran past me, like literally bounced off my tree, and then fell dead about 30 yards away. About 30 minutes later, I see a buck coming, and he's coming from the opposite direction, and he comes down, goes through a ditch. Out in the Midwest, there's ditches everywhere, and they're like 10 feet deep ravines and everything, and he goes down in the ditch, pops up out of the ditch, and when he popped out of the ditch, it was like a flat, and he could see her laying right in front of him. And he walked up to her, and I've got it on video. I think I've probably got a total of 15 minutes of video, but the best video is about, a minute or 2 long that we'll do. But he sniffed, pawed, walked around, shoved, nudged her with his nose, trying to get her up to run. Like he was trying to run that doe. I mean, he did everything but mount her, so to speak. But he was doing his best. I mean, he was like, "You're supposed to be running away from me. Why are you laying here right now?"
Yeah.
And if you're laying here, why don't you smell? Well, something's wrong. But he did not care. He didn't. He just did his thing, and
That was pretty crazy.
yeah,
to
it
watch.
was one of those things where a whole bunch of things had to line up for me to actually be able to witness, and to be able to get it on video was pretty cool. I mean, it was awesome. It's probably one of those memories that you hear stories about people talking about it.
Yeah.
The rare story, but you're like, yeah, that's not gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it really does happen.
So you got that on video. Hopefully we can share a little bit of that. And I know Jack's off camera, but you've been hunting and doing some duck and deer hunting. Is that right?
Yeah, killed 2 bucks. Well, between my buddy and I, we've killed 6 deer.
Over.
Sean that came in.
Yeah. You guys
He got a
6.
buck and a doe.
Yeah.
I've shot 2 bucks and 2 does. So,
Last time you were here, you had 1, I think, and now you got 6. Wow. So he had a good shot. He had a good bit of meat to take back.
yeah, the buck was at like 8 yards.
No way.
Literally walked and brushed up against our blind.
Oh wow.
I'm like, you gotta shoot that one. We've been watching small bucks all morning. I'm like,
Well-
you gotta shoot that one.
Yeah.
Well, there's a time where I am a firm believer that sometimes there are deer that I will pass in situation A that I will not pass in situation B, and it's all has to do with the story and the memory behind the event. So, I'll take the deer that I shot with a rifle this year. Nowhere near the biggest deer I've shot in Missouri, but it was one heck of a cool story with me being on the ground and the deer walking straight in to me while I'm on the ground. And he really, my rifle was shouldered at one point in time, and he just is coming in and looking, and I'm playing like cat and mouse with him and looking. Yeah. It was just a really cool, neat, unique story that I will remember when I'm 65 years old and telling my grandkid, if I'm fortunate enough to have a grandchild, and look at that. Well, hell, so here's the story behind this one. It wasn't just me sitting up in a tree and it's a gargantuan or something, but it was really cool. It cracks me up, and I think what I had an experience later on that kind of made me think that, hey, this is actually, I'm on the right sheet of music for how I spend my time outdoors. Is I guess it was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving or the Thanksgiving morning. I'd gone out and I was tagged out on bucks. I was going out. I was hunting does, and I saw an absolute.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, I saw a bit. Probably the biggest deer I've ever had within bow range.
Really?
Yeah, come by at like 24 yards or something.
Yeah.
And not one time during that entire, experience was I like, dang, I wish I had not have done X or Y. I wish I would have passed on this one or passed on that. That never entered my mind.
Yeah.
At one time, I was sitting up and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I think that's the same one I got a photo of the other day. It is. Holy cow, he is going to be an absolute giant next year. Not once was I like, darn, I could have got,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I love the memories I have. I would not trade them for anything.
Yeah.
And you know what? I hope that deer lives. He made it through rifle season. So, unless his stomach gets him in trouble during the late muzzleloader season, he'll be around for next year. And he is going to be an absolute freak.
Yeah, I
come
can't
next
say I've
year.
ever regretted not pulling the trigger. If I didn't pull the trigger, there was a good reason why I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. Like I say, now I get a big kick out of just watching them.
Yeah.
I could have killed deer this year that came right under my tree stand. Mm-hmm. And I never even picked the crossbow up because where we're hunting, I can hunt there with a gun, but I don't want to hunt with a gun there. It's too residential. But never even picked the crossbow up. I get a kick out of just watching them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Especially when it's during rut,
Yeah.
I watched a little, probably 4-6 point back here in the back between us in the water's edge. I think it was like Monday, maybe. It was one afternoon. I mean, it was in the middle of the afternoon. I just happened to walk out on the back patio and look down towards the dock, and here's this buck, just nose to the ground. We got two trails, deer trails back there. Here's this buck just comes through, you know, nose to the ground, not looking at anything, nose to the ground. Goes down the trail. I watch that buck. He goes across this little creek there up the side of the hill. On the other side of the hill, goes down, makes a U-turn, comes back, and not once did he lift his head up. Not once. And so I was like, man, he's in a residential area chasing a doe. It must be like full-blown rut for him to be doing
It was,
that.
did you say a week ago?
No, it was maybe 3 or 4 days ago, actually.
Yeah, it's still going on.
It's still
here
going
in
on.
Forsyth County.
I figured it.
I was sitting on the deck maybe a week ago with an adult beverage, sitting there watching, and there was a bunch of, there's 5 or 6 does back behind the house.
Yeah.
And I catch something out of the corner of my eye, and this one had apparati on its head besides ears.
Yeah.
And he got on one doe, and he chased her all over. I joined core property, so I couldn't shot them where they were at. But he chased that doe all over the place. Just that one doe. The rest of them kept meandering around, eating acorns and stuff. But he was dead on her. And he did this. That went on for probably 20 minutes before she finally decided she'd had enough and she was going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Of course, she took him with him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you and I saw 2 bucks chasing on Monday, and then I saw one behind the house chasing Monday night when I got home.
And that's
Out
not
at the
counting
lake.
the does we saw.
That's not counting the does, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the bucks we saw, the first one we saw,
Good
was
size.
a good buck.
Yeah, he's a Pope and Young.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was a
easy
good
poking
ways
young.
off, but you could see antler
Yeah.
very easily. Now the other one, he's one that you pass, but or I would anyway. But that first one was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Thanksgiving, maybe a few days before Thanksgiving, kind of a 2-week period in there. That's when they're rutting here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on the tail end of it, but it's
Are
still,
we?
it's still happening though.
Yeah.
Especially with, we had a relatively pretty strong drought this year, and I was doing some looking around and poking around, and James Kroll wrote Dr. Deere he wrote a little deal talking about how when you have a stressed summer, like we had this year, where you have a lot of drought and the deer are stressed, that they will recover from the stress before they will go into estrus. So instead of having a huge push of does go into estrus in a, say, 5-day window, like you would have in a normal, weather patterned year when the deer are not stressed, when they're stressed, you'll have some come in, and it basically causes a trickle rut. So instead of it being,
So it's kind of scattered.
right, instead of them all coming in a 5-day, 5 or 7 day window, it may take them 14 or 21 days just for them to ever come in for their first cycle. And then if you have an overpopulation, then that prolongs it, and then other things prolong it. So, I mean, that's very likely to be one of the reasons why we're still seeing some relatively heavy chasing, and it being, December 5th or 6th, whatever it is today.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I was in dire need of meat, I might go hang a tree tomorrow. But I don't normally go by myself now. I wait for my boy, and he's working. So,
Yeah.
but I guarantee you, we've seen deer on that little old piece of property that we hunt. We've seen deer just about every time we've gone there.
Yeah.
Just didn't feel like pulling the trigger,
We'll definitely do it tomorrow because Friday's going to be the fishing day, I think.
Yeah, I don't think tomorrow's going to be
No, if you got stuff
tomorrow's
to do.
post frontal.
Yeah, if you got stuff to do, I got to fix some wiring on the boat tomorrow. So I'm probably not going to do much fishing tomorrow. I think it's going to be cold. And
Yeah, tomorrow's supposed to be probably the coldest during the day that we've had, and today wasn't very warm.
no. If you were in the sun, it wasn't bad. But
Yeah.
now Friday's going to be the choice day
Yeah.
because it's going to be overcast. It's going to get up in the upper 50s on Friday. It's Friday.
And it's post frontal.
Yeah, and it's post pre.
Pre-frontal.
Pre.
Pre-frontal.
Yeah, think Saturday or Sunday. The front.
Sunday, the monsoon floodgates are.
Yeah.
I think they're calling for like an inch plus of rain on Sunday.
Yeah, they was calling for 3 inches here the last time too, and we didn't get it.
Yeah, we didn't get jack the last time.
I think we got an inch and a tenth.
The lake's still dropping. My corner of my dock's on dry land now, so I'm just letting it go.
Well, hopefully the Corps got all the work they want to get done on the dam.
Man, I hope so.
They finally got it pulled. They've been trying to pull it down for 3 or 4 years, and we've had all this. I mean, the lake has actually until now been at full poo for probably 3 years, and over full poo.
Yeah.
I actually like to fish it more when it's down like it is now anyway.
You're not alone. I mean, so many people have like to fish it better. All the good sticks that I talk to, so I'd rather have it low than high, you know.
Yep.
So the fish are more concentrated when it's low, I think, especially this time of year when they're in the ditches, you know. They're more concentrated in the ditches, more numbers, you know. So that's something that we're going to be looking forward to is actually this Friday. I just want some clouds, you know, and some halfway warm temperatures to fish in. So
And not gale force winds.
yeah, no kidding. That's rough too.
I'm looking forward to that when the water temp is in like the 52, 54 range.
Yeah.
Like sustained 52 and 54, not where it hits it for like 3 hours at 5 o'clock in the morning before it starts to go up, but sustained 52, 54, cloudy, maybe misty, and dead calm.
Wind.
That's the day that I'm looking for.
Yeah, we had a real good day last year during a day like that.
Those are the days when I have had when it's borderline miserable to be out with no wind, clouds, you know, maybe foggy, and then still, you know, in the 40s, I would say, as far as air temperature goes. Those are the days where I have absolutely had my best, hands down, bar none, best ditch fishing days.
A lot of birds working.
Birds
too,
working. I mean, the goose hunters are blasting geese out of the
geese,
sky, you know, and you're sitting over there dragging your
your
swim bait
Tri-Tech
on
or
the
your
bottom or your
Prodigy.
prodigy on the bottom, and
Yep.
it's, you know, doubled. At first, you're like, what in the world am I doing out here? It's 45 degrees. It's 100% humidity. This is about miserable, and then that takes about 5 casts, and you get dink, and you're like, well, game on.
God. I live for the dink in the wintertime, man. The dink is special.
Yeah, that day I was talking about, we and Jeff were out there. We never got the boat on plane, just idle from where we put in at. First stop, he catches one, going out this way, I'll throw out this way, I catch one.
Yeah.
And it was like that just about the whole time we were out there. Didn't catch a ton of fish in one spot, but you catch something when you did stop.
Yeah.
We caught some good ones that day, too.
Caught some good fish.
Well, that's good. Yeah. Well, I think some good days are ahead of us here. So, I think we're going to wrap this up. How long have we been on the air here? A little over an hour, probably.
Probably quite a bit over an hour.
1:15. Oh, that's good. Jack, did you shoot any ducks?
Yeah.
Got to talk about duck hunting a little bit, huh? Mergansers. Yeah. Did you eat them?
Seen a bunch. Seen a bunch of teal.
Did you?
Seen some mallards.
Yeah.
You can't really talk much about duck hunting.
Yeah.
There's not too many spots.
Yeah, I know.
It's not like fishing.
Yeah, man. I'm getting more and more into it. I'm reading more, and I'm looking. I looked at a place up in Missouri to go to. They've still got some openings for some group duck hunts. So I'll probably do a little more research on this place. I mean, it looks like a legit place. And
Well, you and Lisa's got them new guns. You need to go try them out.
oh yeah, we're gonna try them out. Yeah. But what were you saying, Jack?
Habitat Flats. I don't know if you ever.
Habitat. Where's that at?
Missouri.
Is it?
Yeah, that's.
Habitat Flats.
There's a premium, but it's.
Yeah.
It's a good spot.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at some different places and hopefully going to try and put something together. But man, you know, I bought that A300 Beretta, and is it a Beretta A300? Yeah, and 20 gauge, right? And so it's got this little crush pad on the stock, to take some of the shock out of it. And it works so well now. I wish I would have bought the 12 gauge. I bought the 20 gauge to save my shoulder a little bit, And man, it's just so light and it doesn't really kick. I'm like, dang, I wish I would have bought the 12 gauge now. But it is what it is. But
Just
anyway,
wait till you put some high brass steel shot in there and see what happens. You're not shooting target loads in.
We'll see.
Get you some high brass 3-inch steel and.
We'll see what the difference is, but I can't wait, man. I'm excited. It's been like 20-some years since I've knocked down a duck, so I'm gathering up as much information as I can and get some more practice out at River Bend. You've been out at River Bend, haven't you? Yeah. It turns out I got a friend that works out there, so he said come out anytime. So we'll have to go back out and shoot some more skeet. So that's coming up, though. We'll have more to talk about as far as the duck hunting front and follow that. Lisa, she's never duck hunted. This would be something totally new for her. But I can tell you this, when we shot skeet, the first 3 shots that she made with that A300, she hit the mark. It wasn't till her 4th shot that she missed, and I had to follow that up, and so that was getting
I heard you didn't want to go up to the stand and shoot.
I didn't want to. I didn't even want to. I just wanted to get back in the truck and go home. But anyway, we covered some baits. We covered about 6-7 baits tonight. Some of my favorites, some of all our favorites, really, and talked a little bit about hunting. So hopefully we're going to have Jeff's video of his buck nudging the doe, and you never know. We might throw something else in there too. So don't know exactly when we're going to have another one again. Hopefully next time we might be able to scrounge up a guest or something and get somebody on here that we can pick on for a while. So anyway, enjoy your Friday, and we'll see you next time.